Thank you, Senator, for the inspiring words that you pronounced. There is now time for questions and or interventions. I know that Ambassador Savaidis has something in mind to ask. My idea would be that we gather a few questions and then you answer collectively, so okay. We gain time.
Fine.
Ambassador.
Thank you, Professor Flogridis. Your Honor, I was ambassador of Greece to the US back in the early 2000, from 2002 to 2005, and I had the honor and the pleasure to meet you at the Foreign Relations Committee of the Senate on many occasions. And I wish to thank you for all you are doing years now for Greece and Cyprus and for the rule of law also. My question is rather a point that I would like to raise, since your lecture was dedicated to the security cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean, and with Turkey, in the focus. You know, of course, that the main issue there is the delimitation of maritime zones between the countries of the area. And of course, you are aware of the challenges the Turkish policies vis-à-vis Cyprus and also Greece are posing against their rights according to the law of the Sea Convention in the area. My point is the following. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that in recent months, Turkey extended its claims, completely unlawful claims, without any base on existing international law and the law of the sea, in the central Mediterranean. When its defense minister visited Libya last November, the sole purpose of that visit is to present the Libyans with a series of maps and drawings, trying to pull Libya to delimit its maritime zones, not with Greece, in the area of Crete and the Dodecanese complex, including the islands of Rhodes and Carpathos, and delimit those areas instead with Turkey. Such claims have no legal basis by any means. But I draw your attention that the policies and the provocations in the Aegean are recently extending also in possible arrangements that Greece has the right and has also the necessity to conclude with all its neighbors, including, of course, Libya, which, is under special circumstances now. It's in no position to conclude any international agreement. But such claims poses, ambiguities, to say the least, and also threats for the future. So my very brief intervention on today's occasion is simply to draw your attention that the problem that we are facing now in the Eastern Mediterranean is gradually moving towards Central Mediterranean. And that also would be of great interest to American security interests, and also in defense cooperation terms with Greece, since, as you very well know, our defense cooperation agreement, the first one, was signed back in 1952, following our adherence to NATO. And since then, you have an excellent, defense cooperation, which has a bright future, I can say, with all the governments that have passed all these years. So thank you again for your presentation, but I would like to make that point in your presence today. Thank you again.
If I may, thank you, Ambassador. If I may, Senator, we have the wish of the Embassy of Turkey to interview.
Thank you very much to EPLO for this invitation and for this event. And thank you for Senator Menendez to thorough and detailed explanations. And of course, I would need some minutes to answer the arguments put forward by Mr. Menendez, but it would be unfair for the other participants, so I will try to cut it very short. 3 points. About the 15th of July, there had been a terrible attempt to Turkish democracy, and if it would be successful, we would be in disaster. So as a democratic country, we are taking only the countermeasures. And this country, the host country, Greece, which is the cradle of democracy, they also had painful years under the military junta in 1967 and 1974, and they also know very well how military juntas and undemocratic, autocratic managements manage their country. So we are lucky enough not to live under such a military junta. The second point is you talk about the Cyprus issue, and although it was very, very one-sided, you also talk about the influence of Ankara. You know, they are the guarantor powers under the international law. They are signed treaties for that, and the negotiations in Cyprus are under the umbrella of the United Nations. And so far, within 50 years, it has always been like this. And we came just 15 years ago, in 24th of April, just 15 years ago, there was a referendum on the island. And it was accepted by the Turkish community with almost 65% of the vote. And it was rejected by the Greek Cypriots with 75%. So we clearly see who plays the better role for reaching a sustainable solution there. And third point, with regards to the S-400 and F-35, we are allies for decades, and Turkey has been the country with regards to the manpower which contributes to NATO second after the US. And we have tons of overlapping interests, and NATO itself has at its stake in Turkish-American relations. But on the other hand, we have security concerns coming from our southern neighborhood. And we directly requested defense systems, and the US government did not give any response to our request, to our question. And another attractive proposal came from Russia. And they were sharing the technology as well. And we know very well that F-35s are operated in Norway, which are very close to Russian defense system. They are also operating in Israel. And in Syria, we have also Russian defense systems. So, based on the facts, the incompatibility is not real. And we have suggested to the American administration to establish a working group to examine in detail the technical issues. The United States government is keeping its silence. So far, NATO has supported the idea, but we are waiting for a response from the United States administration. My question, sorry for the long arguments, but almost 60% of your presentation was focusing on Turkey, so I had to respond to them. My question goes, you gave a little time to Israel, and their security concerns are, of course, very important, but they have to respect the security concerns of their neighborhood as well. There are Security Council resolutions based on 1967 borders. But now the Eastern Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, recognized by the United States. The Golan Heights are now seen as part of Israel. Now there are plans for West Sharia. So are we going to see new changes and new shapes conducted by US and Israeli decision makers in the future? This is very crucial. Your answer is very crucial, if we are going to talk about Eastern Mediterranean.
Are we going to see, what is your final question? Are we going to see what?
New changes,
New changes.
new shapes in the Eastern Mediterranean. If we don't talk about the Mediterranean Sea, but also about the neighborhood. Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much. We are indeed very lucky this evening to have many representatives of foreign powers among us, and we are thankful to them. I know, for example, that there are 2 representatives of the Russian Federation here. We will have one more question, but very shortly expressed people, and we will close. Please.
Russian Embassy of the Russian Federation. Thank you very much for invitation and for this possibility to participate here. I would not want to go into discussion about what was said about Russian collusions or something like that. It's just, I would like to say, it's just baseless. But my question is, lately, the former president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, he was, as far as I remember, from Democracy Party, right? So he said that if the United States has not spent so many $1 trillion for wars, there would be infrastructure, there would be roads, there would be factories in the United States. That's his words. He said it lately. So instead of speaking about other countries cooperating with each other in the region, and I mean cooperation between Russia and Turkey, Russia and Greece, Greece and China, maybe the United States should better think about its own infrastructure instead of spending money for military projects and something like that. So this is my question. Thank you.
So, Senator,
Okay.
comes to you.
Well, I enjoy a democracy where these things can happen. It's not true everywhere in the world. So let me just start off with. First of all, Ambassador, thank you for your observation. We are very keenly aware that Turkey has exceeded, under the law of the sea and international law in general, what it considers its rights in terms of maritime boundaries. And I think all the countries of the region that will be affected by it will strenuously push back. We think it's also incredibly important in terms of maritime passage that it be very clear what those zones are. I find it incredible that Turkey suggests that its zones go to such a point that it would deny the people of Cyprus, including those who live in the occupied side of Cyprus, the benefits of exploration, if one is to interpret their view of what the zone is. And I hope that while it seeks to assert that those are its maritime boundaries in word, I hope that it will seek international forums to come to a conclusion as to what it legally is entitled to. We want Turkey to have what it's legally entitled to, but no more than what it's legally entitled to. We want every country to enjoy what it is legally entitled to, but no more at the end of the day. So I truly appreciate the observation and the concern. To the distinguished gentleman from Turkey, let me just say that I find it interesting that while you chose to pick on some things, and I'm going to respond to them, you did not deny any of the things that I said about what is happening in Turkey today. The fact that in Turkey more journalists than in any other part of the world are being jailed. The fact that more lawyers are being jailed. EPLO is the very essence, has a whole effort here on the law. Is not disputed, and that is not a question of security, and it's really not what I would have thought of a NATO ally. You mentioned the junta here. The Greek people fought for their freedom at the end of the day. They turned their history around. And so I think one should admire that in that fight for freedom, they turned their history around. And they have been as democratic a nation as any that I have known. I don't see them jailing journalists, lawyers, and infringing on the rights of their neighbors at the end of the day. As it relates to Cyprus, look, I don't understand why Turkey needs 40,000 troops in northern Cyprus. The government of Cyprus's military is infinitesimally small compared to your 40,000 troops in northern Cyprus. And the numbers of people who have come from Anatolia as settlers into northern Cyprus changes the character of the Cypriot people from Turkish Cypriots, and I have visited with Turkish Cypriots, and they consider them first and foremost, they consider themselves Cypriots, first and foremost. But the nature of what is happening there is the change in a way where Ankara has its hand on the scale. And you mentioned the referendum. Well, I don't know what EU country, I'd love to hear some of the EU representatives here, what EU country would permit that a foreign power ultimately has thousands of troops in its country, and that a foreign power also has the right to intervene in your nation whenever it thinks it's in its interest to do so. What EU nation would agree to that? None that I know of. And that is exactly what the Cypriots cannot be called upon to do at the end of the day. That's why they rejected the very essence of the referendum. And finally, on the S-400, look, the United States offered the Patriot system, It is the most highly sophisticated air defense system in the world, from my perspective. And I think President Erdogan wants the S-400 not because he's concerned about his neighbors, but he's concerned about his own military. He wants to use it against his own, he doesn't trust his own military, so he wants the S-400 to defend himself against any potential action in the future. It's not about the region. If it's about the region, then the Patriot missiles could easily, they are interoperable, they're within NATO's mission, and there is no reason for Turkey to move in that direction. So I hope, I truly hope, that President Erdogan will move in a different direction. It will recalculate, recalibrate, and be everything that we aspire Turkey to be. But that is not the reality today, with all due respect. Finally, with reference to the gentleman from the Russian Federation, you know, I also appreciate that you didn't answer any of my concerns about Russia in the region. In terms of what they have done in Crimea, in Ukraine, in the Skripal attack, in the actions against the United States of America interfering in our elections, and a whole host of other things. So I am sanctioned in Russia. I am proud of the fact that I am sanctioned in Russia. I cannot visit your country. But at the end of the day, I would hope for Russia to observe a different order. Now, the United States is a force for good in the world. We came twice to this continent to save the continent from world wars. The only thing we asked for is enough land to bury our soldiers who were dead. We sought no other benefit. From Normandy and everywhere else, that is all we have ever sought. Give us enough land to bury our dead who we cannot bring back to the United States. We have served enormous blood and national treasure on behalf of Europe and the promotion of the European Union. We are a force for good in the world. It is we who have led, for example, in Africa, on seeking to eliminate tuberculosis, malaria, HIV/AIDS globally, and so much more. We spend more money in humanitarian assistance than virtually anywhere else. Are we perfect? No. Show me a democracy that is. But are intentions those of a global partner that seek peace, prosperity, and stability? Yes. Did we violate the INF Treaty that the Russian Federation violated? No, they violated it. You want to talk about spending more money? We don't need a nuclear arms race. But when you violate the INF Treaty, when you deploy a new missile system that particularly can be dangerous to Europe, then you potentially are the ones starting a new arms race. So I hope for a different path for Russia. We do not seek to be adversaries with any of these countries. We seek to find a world in which we can peacefully coexist and we can all prosper. We will always have differences. We will always have challenges. But they need not be in the context of the type of conflict that we are concerned about today. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate
Senator, this is for you.
Oh, thank you.
It is our custom to offer our guest speaker a picture of Manuel Chrysoloras. Right in here, European Public Law Organization, 15th lecture, Manuel Chrysoloras. Guest speaker, the Honorable Robert Menendez, United States Senator, ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, 22 April 2019. So this is for you. You need the frame, of course. Yes. And we do another. We need another so that we keep the 15 frames in our walls.
Thank you very much.
Senator,
It's been a great
it's been a great time. Dear ministers, ambassadors, presidents, friends, the 15th Manuel Chrysoloras lecture came to its end. Thank you.